then the lights die at 10:47 p.m. Not gradually, not with warning, all at once. 1 second, the fourth-floor hallway exists in fluorescent certainty. The next, nothing. Total and immediate, the kind of dark that doesn't arrive. It replaces everything. Cynthia Morgan doesn't scream. She never screams. What she does is press her back flat against the wall and count. 1, 2, 3. Because that's the protocol she built for herself at 16 and has never once needed to question. Usually by 3, her nervous system agrees to cooperate. Tonight, it doesn't. The darkness has texture. It settles against her skin and insists. Rain against the parking lot windows turns the air white and opaque. And for 7 seconds, she knows it's 7 because she counted those too. There is no backup light, no sound except water driving itself against glass. And somewhere in the back of her chest, a door she thought she'd sealed shut blows open. She is 16 again. The apartment smells like damp concrete and something burnt from the neighbor's unit 2 floors below. Danielle is asleep on the mattress. There are voices in the stairwell that have no business being there at 11 p.m. Cynthia holds her sister's hand and makes no sound. She doesn't move. She endures. 22 years dissolve in 7 seconds. Her hands are flat against the wall. Her breathing has gone shallow in a way she hates recognizing. Short, quick, useless. She tries the next layer of the protocol. You are 31. You are in a commercial building. The floor is under your feet. But she can't feel the floor. She can't feel anything except the weight of dark that rain keeps sealing around her. Then, footsteps, not alarming ones. Measured, heavy with purpose, not urgency. A flashlight appears at the far end of the corridor, aimed low, at the floor, not at her face. Whoever is holding it isn't announcing themselves. They're just moving. Hey! The voice is even. No alarm, no performance. 4th floor service hallway? She tries to answer. Something comes out. He doesn't rush forward. He stops where he is. The generator will stabilize in 2-3 minutes. A beat. Can you tell me where your feet are right now? The question is strange. It is exactly the right question. She looks down. Cold tile. The pressure of her own weight, real and specific, pressing into the soles of her shoes. She is here. Here. Her voice is smaller than she'd like. Good. He takes 1 step forward. The flashlight stays low. My name's Tyler, building maintenance. I'm not going anywhere until the light comes back. 2-3 minutes. She can hold 2-3 minutes. But as the emergency strip along the floor finally flickers on and bathes the hallway in thin yellow light, Cynthia Morgan understands something that will take her weeks to fully name. For the first time in longer than she can count, she didn't have to hold anything alone. And that terrifies her more than the dark ever did. The most terrifying thing Cynthia Morgan ever faced wasn't the dark. It was someone who didn't leave when he saw her in it. If this story already feels like something worth staying for, consider subscribing. We only write these for people who actually feel them. The hallway that didn't end. The next morning, Cynthia arrives at the clinic at 7:45, 15 minutes before her scheduled time, just as she always does. She wears her burgundy blazer, her gold watch, and the expression she has practiced since before she had a word for it. Composed, present, already ahead of the next thing. Priya is at reception, still tying her lanyard. You're early even for you, she says without looking up. Traffic was light. Priya finally looks up. Her gaze holds half a second longer than usual. How's the shoulder? Cynthia blinks. Fine. Why? You're holding it like someone pressed it against something cold all night. She rotates the shoulder deliberately, as if the question itself were enough to fix whatever Priya's noticing. I'm fine. She goes to her office, shuts the door, and stands at the window for exactly 1 minute before sitting down. Last night, after the backup light stabilized and Tyler confirmed the issue was a faulty circuit breaker, localized, 30 minutes to repair, Standard building protocol. She had done everything correctly. Said thank you. Gathered her bag, her coat, her still open laptop. Walked to the elevator with her spine straight. Drove home in silence. She did not think about it on the drive. Did not think about it in the shower. She lay down with the lights on and focused on the Chicago proposal until 2 a.m., when her brain finally ran out of ways to arrange the variables. She is thinking about it now. The logical response, the thing she does with every event that carries more weight than expected, is to file it, label it, assess it, move past it. Power failure, panic response, isolated incident. She is not 16. She has managed this before. A triggered response does not mean she broke. It means the system was temporarily overloaded. She opens her laptop. The monthly report is still there, cursor blinking where she left it at 10:46. Dr. Hale's proposal email sits in a separate tab she hasn't closed since Thursday. She closes the proposal tab. Not yet. She needs clarity before she reads it again, and right now her thinking isn't clean. It keeps circling back to the fluorescent yellow of the emergency strip on the floor, and a flashlight pointed deliberately downward, and a voice that didn't ask if she was okay, because it understood that question would have been the wrong one. The morning fills in the way mornings do. 2 staff check-ins, a supply order review, a patient complaint she resolves in 3 sentences, and a follow-up call. By 11 a.m., Cynthia has done the work of someone who had a normal night. Only Priya, refilling her tea mug at the break room counter, says anything. Dr. Hale wants a response by end of week. His assistant confirmed. I know. And I have until end of week. She takes a breath. Is there a question somewhere in there? Priya wraps both hands around her mug. It reads, powered by caffeine and bad decisions. A gift from Cynthia on her 2nd work anniversary. The position is in Chicago, Cynthia. I'm just saying, Chicago. I know where it is. Priya leaves without pushing further, which is the specific form of loyalty Cynthia has come to rely on. She goes back to her screen. The monthly report sits unfinished, but she stares at it for a full minute without adding a single word. Her right hand rests on the desk. The gold watch catches the fluorescent light from overhead and bends it back at her. Warm and familiar. Her mother's voice made material, a reminder of every reason she can't afford to be anything less than certain. She opens the proposal tab again and reads it through to the end. Senior Director of Regional Operations, Chicago Headquarters, full relocation package, a salary she would have called impossible 4 years ago, direct board access. Dr. Hale's cover note calls it a natural next step and a recognition of exceptional performance. By every external measure, this is the door she spent a decade standing in line for. She closes the laptop. The problem with doors you spend a decade wanting is that you never picture what's on the other side. You picture the door itself, the moment of opening, the proof that all of it was worth it. She pulls up the maintenance request number for last night. Standard procedure, incidents over 30 minutes require a follow-up signature from the building contact. She confirms the work was completed and clicks submit before she can think about it any longer. At the bottom of the form, there's a field for comments. She leaves it blank. She is almost sure she leaves it blank because there is nothing to say. Almost. He didn't ask if she was okay. 3 days later, Tyler Park appears at clinic reception at 8:20 a.m. He's there for the scheduled quarterly maintenance check, fluorescent panel inspection, HVAC filter, the 3rd floor fountain that's been running warm since October. It's in the system. Priya has the paperwork. The whole thing should take 40 minutes, and Cynthia has no professional reason to be anywhere near reception at that hour. She is there because she forgot her badge in the break room, which is adjacent to reception, and she has, apparently, excellent timing. Priya spots her first. The expression on Priya's face is the one she makes when she is processing something at high speed while keeping her face completely neutral, which means she is processing everything at once. Tyler looks up from his clipboard. Their eyes meet for approximately 2 seconds. Ms. Morgan. Professional. Clean. Tyler. She retrieves her badge from the counter without breaking stride. You're here for the panel check? And the fountain. 3rd floor. That fountain's been slow all fall. Took long enough. He doesn't take the mild observation personally. I submitted the work order twice. Got bounced back to building management both times. Priya, who has been staring at a blank section of her screen, says, Bureaucracy. Nature's constant. Cynthia almost smiles. Let Priya know when you're finished on 4, in case we need to notify the afternoon patients. 4th floor is already done. Checked it first. She pauses just long enough to register it. Already? Before the building filled up. Easier that way. There is nothing unusual about this. It is a reasonable approach to maintenance scheduling. She nods, moves toward her office, and spends the rest of the morning not thinking about why he checked the 4th floor first. At 11:30, she is in the hallway between her office and the supply room when she nearly walks directly into him. He's carrying the HVAC filter panel, toolbox in the other hand, stepping back from the ceiling access above the far end of the corridor. Sorry, she says, out of reflex. My fault. He steps aside easily, without claiming any extra space. She moves past him, then stops. It's not a decision she makes consciously. It's the kind of stop that happens before thinking catches up. The other night. She doesn't turn around right away. Thank you, a beat. You don't need to. I know I don't need to. Now she turns. I'm saying it because I mean it. Tyler sets the filter panel on top of the toolbox. He doesn't deflect or perform humility. He just looks at her with the same steady attention she'd noticed in the dark. How are you doing with it? He asks. Not, are you okay? Not that must have been difficult. How are you doing with it? As if the event is something she's carrying forward, not something that simply happened to her. Fine. The word comes out before she chooses it. He nods once, which means he heard the answer and has no interest in pushing past it. The not pushing, she realizes, is the most respectful thing anyone has done for her in recent memory. The 4th floor breaker's been unreliable since August, he says. I flagged it twice. Should have been replaced in September. He pauses briefly. I'm sorry it held on long enough to cause trouble. The apology lands differently than she expects. He's not apologizing for her reaction. He's not making the blackout about her. He's accounting for a system failure he felt responsible for tracking, and didn't track in time. It wasn't your fault, she says. I know. He picks up the toolbox. Doesn't mean I don't own the part that was mine. She watches him continue down the hallway, unhurried, purposeful, the small flashlight still clipped to his belt even in full daylight, and she stands there for slightly longer than makes any practical sense. Priya materializes at her elbow when she turns back. How Priya moves without audible footsteps is one of the ongoing mysteries of the clinic. Don't, Cynthia says. I wasn't going to say a thing. Good. I was only going to observe, professionally, as someone trained in human behavior, that you said more words in that hallway just now than in our entire staff meeting yesterday. Priya. Going. Tea. Goodbye. Cynthia walks back to her office. At her desk, she opens her email and starts drafting a response to Dr. Hale's proposal. She writes 2 sentences and deletes them. She writes 1 sentence, reads it 3 times, and deletes that too. She stares at the blank response field. The cursor blinks. She counts the blinks without meaning to. Old habit, the same reflex as counting seconds. 11 before she makes herself stop. She thinks about what Tyler said in the hallway. Doesn't mean I don't own the part that was mine. No performance in it, no search for absolution. Just a man accounting for what was his, and no more than that. She has met a lot of people in 4 years of clinic management. She hasn't met many who can do it that cleanly. She opens the proposal email and reads it for the 6th time since Thursday. The compensation is still significant. The title is still impressive. Dr. Hale's cover note still calls it a natural next step, which she still finds slightly condescending, and probably wasn't meant that way. What she is not ready to admit not yet, not out loud, is that she isn't avoiding the decision because the choice is unclear. She's avoiding it because one version of the answer requires her to want something she hasn't let herself name yet. Named things are real, and real things can be lost. She has always been better at building toward something than at staying once she's arrived. She closes the draft without saving. The Chicago proposal. Dr. Raymond Hale runs his meetings the way he shakes hands, with more force than strictly necessary, as if conviction can be transmitted through pressure. He schedules the formal proposal meeting for Thursday, 2 p.m., corner office, 5th floor, 1 floor above the clinic, where the administrative staff sit, and the carpet is a marginally better grade. His desk is clear except for the position documents and a Mont Blanc pen placed at a deliberate angle. Already waiting for a signature. Cynthia. He gestures at the chair across from him. I appreciate you making time. She made time because he summoned her. These are not the same thing, and they both know it, and neither names it. This is professional etiquette. She sits with her notepad, physical, not digital, which reads as composed to Dr. Hale, and her gold watch and an expression that says she is here to gather information before making a decision. Not an expression that says she has been staring at his email for a week. He opens the folder. She has already read every word of it. She reads it again now as if she hasn't. Senior Director of Regional Operations, full integration with the Chicago headquarters team, oversight of the 3-state network, direct board access, quarterly reviews. He slides the first page across the desk. Compensation is here. Relocation is full. Start date is flexible within the first quarter. She reads the compensation figure. Does not react visibly. The previous person in the role, she starts. Chen was excellent. She transitioned to the national office after 2 years. The position is designed for someone who can move. Designed for someone who can move. She notes the phrasing carefully. The merger, she says. He pauses, brief but present. The pending integration is still being structured. There will be some operational realignment during the transition. In specific terms. Those decisions happen at the regional level. The timeline is approximately 18 months post-merger finalization. He folds his hands on the desk. Someone in the director role will have significant input on how those processes are handled. She hears what he is offering. Influence over who gets cut. She hears what he is not saying. Someone will be cut. She writes nothing on the notepad. She asks 2 more questions about board structure and reporting chains. He answers them with the specific detail of someone who prepared for her particularly, which she notes as a form of respect, even when it comes attached to an agenda. I want you to know, he says, as she closes her notepad, that this wasn't a complicated decision internally. You were the first name on the list and the only name we needed. I appreciate that. You've built something exceptional here. The numbers speak. A pause. But I'd be doing you a disservice if I suggested the clinic was the ceiling. You've already outgrown it. She doesn't respond to this. She says she'll have a response before end of next week. He says he'll look forward to it and stands to shake her hand, grip slightly too firm, as always. She takes the elevator down to 4, steps into the hallway, and stops outside the supply room. At the far end of the corridor, Tyler is replacing a burnt-out tube in the ceiling fixture. He has his back to her. He doesn't know she's there. He works with the focused, unhurried attention she has come to recognize as specific to him. Not slowness, but the particular efficiency of someone who has learned not to rush past the part where you actually fix something. She watches him for a moment he'll never know about. The position would take her to Chicago. It would mean leaving this clinic, this team, these 4 floors she spent 4 years making function. It would mean leaving before the merger completes. Before she can know what staffing adjustments actually mean, who stays and who doesn't. Dr. Hale's phrase comes back. Designed for someone who can move, she has always been able to move. Moving is what she does when staying starts to cost something. Tyler replaces the tube, closes the panel, steps back to check the light. It flickers once, then holds. She pushes open the stairwell door before he can turn around. The coffee no one arranged. It is not planned. That's the part she'll keep returning to. It's 7:30 p.m. on a Tuesday that ran too long, a staff conflict in the afternoon that took 2 hours to mediate, a rescheduled equipment delivery that backed up the whole day, a follow-up email from Dr. Hale's assistant arriving at 6:45 that asked, without asking, whether she'd had additional time to consider. She dealt with all of it. She is, if nothing else, someone who deals. The clinic is empty when she finally locks the supply room. Last one out, which happens often enough that she's stopped examining it. She puts on her coat. In the break room, Tyler is rinsing a travel mug at the sink. She stops. He looks up. Long day? He asks. Every Tuesday. You shouldn't still be here. You're here. I was fixing the panel on 3. It's in my hours. He sets the mug on the counter. Yours ended at 6. She doesn't know why that observation, that he knows her scheduled hours, registers the way it does. Building staff have access to clinic timetables. It's purely logistical. She knows that. I'll make coffee, she says, already moving to the machine. If you have 10 minutes. I have 10 minutes. They end up staying 40. There's no conversation that announces itself as significant. He mentions the panel repair. She mentions the staff conflict without specifics. He asks how long she's been at the clinic, 4 years, and she asks how long he's been in building maintenance, 7. He grew up partly in Cincinnati, partly in Seoul, his parents' city. He speaks Korean when it matters, not as a credential. She grew up 2 hours from Greenvale, came here for a job that was supposed to be temporary, and became permanent in the way things do when you're good at them, and stop questioning why you're still there. The coffee is mediocre. Neither of them mentions it. At some point, she tells him about Chicago. She doesn't plan to. She is mid-sentence about the fall operations review when she hears herself say, Dr. Hale wants me in Chicago, and keeps talking, which means she can't take it back. Tyler listens. When she finishes, he says nothing for a moment. That's a significant offer, he says. It is. Are you going to take it? I don't know yet. Another pause. His mug is empty. He looks at it, not at her. What would you be leaving behind? She thinks about her team, about Priya, about the patients she knows by their patterns, their anxieties, their preferred appointment slots. She thinks about the phrase staffing adjustments and the fact that she still doesn't fully understand what accepting would require her to walk away from. More than I initially understood, she says. He nods. He doesn't say, don't go. He doesn't say go. He says, I think you already know what you want. You just haven't decided if you're allowed to want it yet. She looks at him. The sentence is quiet. Not an accusation and not advice. An observation from someone who has watched her long enough, in a short time, to see something she hasn't consciously put into words. What does that mean? She asks. Just what it sounds like. He stands, takes his mug to the sink. I don't think you're confused about Chicago. I think you're waiting for the math to give you permission. She opens her mouth. Nothing comes out. I should finish up, he says, without unkindness. He collects his toolbox from the corner. Drive safe, Cynthia. She sits at the break room table for 3 minutes after he leaves. The break room feels larger without him in it, which is the kind of observation she would normally file away as irrelevant. She doesn't file it away. She thinks about the 40 minutes. The way neither of them performed being relaxed. They simply were, or something close to it. The way he shared things about his mother without framing them as confessions, without asking for a particular response, just telling her. Because they were in the same room and it was real. She can't remember the last time someone shared something with her that way, without also needing her to manage their reaction to sharing it. She understands slowly, the person that other people bring their problems to. She has never been the person someone simply talks to. That night she lies with the lights on and doesn't think about the proposal at all. She thinks about what it means that the most clarifying thing anyone has said to her in months came from a man she met in the dark, whose primary qualification for knowing her is that he didn't treat her panic as a problem to solve. He's waiting for the math to give you permission. She's not confused about Chicago. The ceiling is very white and very still and completely unhelpful. Chapter: The Mother's Watch. She almost misses it. It's a Friday that moves in layers, every hour revealing another underneath it. The clinical audit arrives with more flags than expected, Doctor. Hale's assistant sends a third reminder about the proposal response, and the water fountain on 3 breaks again before noon. Which means Tyler is back before she's had time to prepare for that possibility. She wasn't preparing for that possibility. That's what she tells herself. He passes through the clinic around 2 p.m. to assess the fountain line. Priya greets him with the easy warmth she extends to anyone who isn't performing authority. Cynthia is in her office with the door half open, enough to hear the corridor, not enough to signal availability. She's on a call when she sees him pass the doorway. He doesn't look in. She stays on the call. 20 minutes later, she steps into the break room, and he's there, sitting on the bench along the far wall, not eating, not on his phone. Just sitting with his hands loosely folded on his knees, looking at nothing in particular. She slows. Something in his posture is different. Not distressed exactly, but unlike the focused practicality she associates with him. He looks like a man who has temporarily set something down and hasn't yet picked it back up. Fountain fixed? She asks. Yeah, main valve, same as last time. She takes her lunch from the refrigerator, sits at the table, diagonal from him, close enough to share the room, far enough for both of them to look elsewhere if needed. You're not eating, she says. Not hungry yet. She opens her container. He stays where he is. The refrigerator hum fills the silence, which is not uncomfortable, and that itself is notable. After a while, she says, Something happen? He looks at his hands. My mother called this morning. She waits. She asked what city I lived in. A pause. She knows the answer. She's visited. But the name just wasn't there for a moment. Cynthia sets her fork down without making a sound. There is a version of this response that is efficient and functional. Has she seen a doctor? What are the next steps? And she knows that version of herself would reach for it automatically. She doesn't. How old is she? She asks instead. 67. Are you close? Close in the way that people are when they spent a long time learning how to be in the same room. He says this without bitterness. She was always better at the practical. I knew she loved me because she showed up. Not because she said it. Cynthia's hand rests near her watch. She doesn't look at it. My mother was the same way. Was? She passed. 4 years ago. The month before I took this job. He looks at her. Something shifts in his expression. Not pity, not sympathy of the condolence card variety. Recognition. That's a lot to carry into a new position. I didn't think of it that way at the time. I thought of it as motivation. To keep going. To keep going fast enough that it didn't catch up. She hasn't said that to anyone. She's not entirely sure she said it to herself. The fluorescent light hums overhead. Outside, through the break room window, the late afternoon is gray and close. He says, I keep meaning to visit her. I go when I can. But I'm always calculating. What I can take off. What needs coverage here. Whether this month is worse than last month or just different from it. He exhales slowly. I don't want her to call me one day and not recognize my voice. The sentence sits in the room between them. Then go, Cynthia says. Go before the calculation wins. He looks at her. And she looks at him. For a moment, the break room is very small and very human, and neither of them is performing anything. Yeah, he says. She picks her fork back up. He turns toward the window. They sit together until the afternoon shift call goes off on her phone, and she has to stand and collect her things. When she leaves, neither of them says anything else. The silence holds the shape of everything that was said. In the elevator down to the lobby, she looks at the gold watch on her wrist and thinks about her mother. Not with grief, just with clarity. Her mother showed up, brought food when Cynthia had the flu, called on exam days not to ask the grade but to say she'd lit a candle. Never once said I love you in the words themselves, but it was in every action, every practical gesture, every single time she showed up without being asked. Tyler just told her something he hasn't said out loud to anyone. She could tell by the weight of it, the way it sat in the air between them, heavy with all the months it had been unsaid. And she had responded not with strategy or advice, but with the only true thing she had. Go before the calculation wins. She has been calculating for so long she's forgotten what it feels like to simply decide. That evening, for the first time in weeks, she calls Danielle. Priya knew before everyone. Priya Nair has a talent for noticing things that do not announce themselves. It isn't gossip, or it isn't only gossip. It's pattern recognition, and her patterns are reliable. She noticed the supply order discrepancy before the monthly audit. She noticed Dr. Hale always schedules his difficult conversations on Thursday afternoons when the clinical staff is most depleted. She noticed, before either of them did, that Cynthia Morgan and Tyler Park hold eye contact 2 seconds longer than the situation requires. She mentioned none of this until the morning Cynthia came in carrying the particular energy of someone who didn't sleep enough and was refusing to acknowledge it. You talked to him again, Priya said, without looking up from the schedule. Good morning to you too. The break room. Yesterday afternoon, 40-some minutes. That's not... Priya, I'm not saying anything. She placed a stack of patient files on the counter with professional serenity. I'm only noting that you submitted your afternoon report at 4:15, which is the latest you've ever submitted anything in 4 years, and that you came in this morning looking, specifically, less like someone in crisis than you have in weeks. Cynthia stared at her. Medical audit on my desk, please. In the shared folder, I helped you with the framework. Priya picked up her tea mug. I'm your closest thing to a friend at this job, which is either sweet or a workplace boundary violation, depending on the angle. Cynthia sat at the reception desk. Her office was still occupied by audit documentation, and let herself stop moving for a moment. Priya waited with the patience she reserved for things that mattered. He told me about his mother, Cynthia said. She's having memory difficulties. He doesn't talk about it with most people. He talks with Marcus sometimes, but that's different. Marcus is a coworker. I'm a coworker. Priya sipped her tea with the composure of someone who has made their point and knows it. Cynthia picked up a pen from the counter and set it back down. He said something to me last week, that I already know what I want, that I just haven't decided if I'm allowed to want it. About Chicago? About Chicago. Is he wrong? She didn't answer. Priya set her mug down carefully. Can I say something that might be unwelcome? When have you ever not? Dr. Hale doesn't see this clinic the way you do. He sees a metric, a performance indicator. She held Cynthia's gaze. You see the people. That's not a reason to turn down a promotion. No. But it might be a reason to be very clear about what you'd be walking away from. The morning filled in around them. Early patients arriving, a delivery to sign for, the routine Cynthia had spent 4 years building into something that actually worked. She stood, straightened her blazer. There's something about the merger I can't quite reach, she said. Hale said staffing adjustments and moved past it too quickly. Priya's expression shifted slightly, something sharpening behind her eyes. I'll keep my ears open. You always do. I appreciate you noticing. Cynthia went to her office. At 11:30, Priya appeared in the doorway with her mug refilled, and the look Cynthia recognized as I have information, and I'm building up to it. Tyler's here for the HVAC check, Priya said. He asked if you needed the break room at 2. The break room? I believe the technical description is... He was checking. Cynthia turned back to her screen. Tell him 2 works. She heard Priya's footsteps recede down the hallway, heard the polished cheerfulness of her voice at reception. She didn't catch the specific words. She didn't need to. She looked at the Chicago proposal document still open on her screen. Unresolved, intact, perfect on paper. At 2:01, she closed her laptop and walked to the break room. Danielle, and the night that came back. Danielle opens the door before Cynthia knocks, which means she saw her through the peephole and stood there waiting, which is something Danielle has done since they were children and still finds charming, and Cynthia still finds impossible to explain why it moves her. "You're early." Danielle steps back to let her in. "I left the clinic on time for once." "That's alarming. Come in. I made the rice thing." "You look like you need the rice thing." The apartment is warm and lived in. Open book face down on the couch, headphones around the neck of a jacket draped over a chair. Danielle's space always looks like someone mid-thought, and Cynthia has always quietly envied that, even while cataloging it. They eat. They talk about Danielle's graduate program, a professor who assigns reading in units of vibes, a classmate Danielle may or may not be interested in, but absolutely is. Cynthia listens more than she talks, and Danielle accepts this. It is, for once, a silence with nothing wrong in it. Then Danielle says, "Remember the apartment on Whitfield?" Cynthia's fork slows. "I think about it sometimes." Danielle's voice has no current weight in it, the tone she uses for old things. Not in a heavy way. It just surfaces. "What made you think of it?" "I was telling a friend about being scared of the dark as a kid, and I realized I'm not anymore. And I couldn't figure out exactly when that changed." She tilts her head. "I think it was that night. I think losing the fear happened there." Cynthia looks at her plate. "You want to know what I remember most?" Danielle continues. "You left. You went into the hallway to check on the voices. I know. You were 16, and you went out by yourself, and I was 8 and alone for almost 10 minutes, and I didn't panic." She pauses. "Because you'd already given me your strategy before you went out that door." Cynthia has been very still for the past 30 seconds. "I never told you that I left." "I know. I think you thought I was asleep." Danielle looks at her across the table. "I wasn't. I watched you go and I counted. 1, 2, 3. Just like you'd shown me. And you came back. I left you alone, Danielle. I shouldn't have. You went to make sure we were actually safe." Her voice is quiet but certain. "That's what you did. You didn't run. You didn't freeze. You got information. You came back." A pause. "You were 16, and you were scared, and you handled it. And then you spent 22 years deciding that the handling wasn't good enough." Cynthia feels something shift in her chest, not breaking, but adjusting, the way a load redistributes when someone helps carry it. "You've been angry at yourself for doing the right thing," Danielle says. "That's the most you thing that has ever happened. It comes out somewhere between grief and a laugh." Cynthia presses her fingers to her mouth for a moment. Danielle doesn't rush her. She inherited the waiting from someone. "There's a man," Cynthia says eventually. Danielle's expression doesn't change. "Okay. He works in the building. Maintenance. He was there during the blackout last month. He didn't make it into something. Make it into something, meaning he didn't try to fix me. He just stayed until I was steady." Danielle considers this for a moment. "And you're telling me this over rice on a Wednesday because I don't know what to do with it." "Cynthia." Danielle leans back, something like tenderness in the gesture. "What do you usually do when you don't know what to do with something?" "I control it." "Right. So maybe that's the one thing you don't do this time." Cynthia picks her fork back up. Danielle mercifully lets the subject breathe. They talk about lighter things, ordinary things, until the late hour makes itself known, and Cynthia collects her coat. At the door, Danielle says, "What's his name?" "Tyler." Danielle nods, as if this is sufficient information. "Good name." Cynthia steps into the stairwell. Behind her, Danielle's door closes softly. She drives home in silence. But this silence is different from all the others. It doesn't press against her. It holds. Tantri. The merger no one announced. Priya does not eavesdrop. This is a distinction she takes seriously. She is simply good at being in the right place when someone is careless about volume. She is refilling her tea on a Wednesday afternoon when Dr. Hale takes a call in the 5th floor corridor. His office door is open because he never considers who might be on the floor below, and the stairwell between 4 and 5 has a particular acoustic quality she has previously used to overhear the annual budget review and a heated exchange about parking allocation. This time she hears the word restructuring and stops moving. She hears the clinic network. She hears Q2 target. She hears the Greenvale location specifically will need to absorb reductions. And then the call drops, and footsteps retreat into the 5th floor office. She stands at the break room counter for a full minute without doing anything else. Then she goes to find Cynthia. Cynthia is mid-supply audit and has the patient expression of someone who has learned to complete work despite constant interruption. She looks up. She reads Priya's face. The humor is gone, which means this is real. Close the door, Cynthia says. Priya sits and relays everything precisely, without filling it in. She knows Cynthia well enough to give her facts, not interpretation. When she's done, Cynthia is quiet. Absorb reductions, she repeats. That's the phrase. About Greenvale specifically. He said Greenvale specifically. Cynthia turns to face the window. Outside, the parking lot is gray and wet, a slow drizzle building all afternoon. She thinks about her team, 9 people she brought in or trained, an operational system she spent 18 months redesigning from the ground up. She thinks about Dr. Hale saying you've already outgrown this clinic. She hears it differently now. He told me in the first month, she says, that the previous person in the role needed to learn not to get attached to her original team. Priya's expression is careful. When exactly did he say that? First formal meeting. Month 1. That's pointed. It might not mean anything. Cynthia turns back from the window. It might mean exactly what it sounds like. I need to see the merger documentation. Whatever's been filed internally. HR has the integration memo. It's in the shared network through the staffing system. Can you pull it? Already doing it. Priya has her phone in hand, moving fast. A pause. Found it. A longer pause. Then quietly. Oh. What? Priya looks up. Proposed reduction of 30 to 40% of operational support staff across the 3-location network. Consolidation targeted at 2 sites. Greenvale is listed as the primary absorption clinic. Which means Greenvale is where the remaining staff from the other 2 locations consolidate into, the ones who aren't cut. Which means our team. Some of them don't survive the merger, even in the best case. Cynthia says it plainly, because the alternative is worse. And the director role is positioned above the merger process, regional. Whoever takes the position is insulated from the cuts, but responsible for implementing the process. Priya sets her phone on the desk. The tea mug sits empty beside it, the first time Cynthia has ever seen it empty without Priya reaching for a refill. The small detail lands with unexpected weight. If you don't take the position, Priya says carefully, the cuts still happen. I know that. But you'd be here when they do. Cynthia stands, straightens her blazer by reflex, the move she makes when she needs to think, and her body needs something to do. She looks at her team through the glass partition. 2 coordinators at their desks, a technician reviewing charts, people who trusted the structure she built. I need 24 hours, she says. Okay. And I need you to act normally around Hale. I've been managing difficult dynamics my entire career. Priya picks up the empty mug, looks at it for a moment, and sets it back down. I know what's at stake. Cynthia believes her. She does not sleep that night at all. If you've been holding your breath for Cynthia, stay right here. The next, chapter. What she left locked up. She calls Tyler at 8 p.m. Not to tell him about the merger. That's a professional matter, and she still doesn't have language for what he is. She calls because she is in her apartment with the integration document open on her laptop, and she has read the same paragraph 4 times, and the words keep sliding off her. He picks up on the 3rd ring. Hey, are you busy? Just finished. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. A pause. Cynthia, I found out something about the proposal today. The merger. The position isn't what I thought it was. What do you mean? It comes with insulation from a process I can't support. She hears him settle, the shift of someone becoming more present. Do you want to tell me about it? So she does. She gives him the structure without the internal noise. The merger, the staffing reductions, Greenvale as primary absorption site. She tells him what accepting would mean operationally, and what staying would mean. She tells him about Dr. Hale's comment from month 1, which she has now officially stopped interpreting charitably. Tyler listens. At the end he says, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know yet." "That's not true." She almost smiles. "No, it's not. When are you going to let yourself say that out loud?" "I'm working up to it." He's quiet for a moment. Then, "Can I tell you something?" "Please." My mother's situation is further along than I knew how to say out loud. I've been calling it memory difficulties for 2 months. Her doctor used a different word last week. A pause. I've been treating it like a logistics problem. Optimize the visits. Find the right facility. Calculate the window. Get it right before it matters. Tyler. I'm saying, I know what it looks like when someone is solving instead of deciding. You do it well. So do I. Neither of us is fooling anyone, least of all ourselves. She sits with that. The laptop screen dims from inactivity. The apartment is quiet. I'm going to see her next weekend, he says. I'm not waiting for a better month. Good. Whatever you decide about the merger, Cynthia, if you stay, I'll be glad you stayed. A brief pause. But I want you to stay for yourself, not as damage control. She closes the integration document. The screen goes dark. How do you do that? She says. Do what? Say the thing that's actually true without it sounding like a verdict. Practice, and a lot of bad attempts first. She exhales. I'm going to call Danielle. Good. And then I'm going to try to sleep for once. Also good. Tyler. She pauses. Thank you. You called me. His voice is easy. That's the part you did. She hangs up and calls Danielle, who picks up immediately and says, Okay, what happened? Which means Danielle has been waiting. She tells her about the merger, the team, the choice. Danielle listens and then says 2 things. First, that Cynthia already knows what she's going to do, and Danielle is going to let her get there on her own. Second, that she's been thinking about what she told her last week, the night on Whitfield. You left to check on us, Danielle says. That's what you always do. You go first to make sure it's safe for everyone else. And sometimes that means leaving people behind. And sometimes it means making sure there's something to come back to. Danielle's voice is careful, precise. There's a difference between protecting people by leaving them and protecting people by staying. Cynthia doesn't answer right away. You know which one applies here, Danielle says. She does. She's known since Priya sat across from her with an empty tea mug. She closes the laptop fully. She takes off her gold watch, sets it on the nightstand, not dramatically, just gently, and lies down in the dark without leaving the light on. For the first time in longer than she can count. The dark is just the dark. She sleeps. When he answered on the second ring, the second power outage happens on a Saturday night in late November. She is home alone, not unhappily. She has been processing the week at her own pace, the decision forming without being forced, its shape becoming clearer each day. Tyler has been in Cincinnati since Thursday, visiting his mother. He texted Friday morning. She remembered my name today. Good day. And Cynthia held her phone for a full minute before writing back, "That matters. I'm glad. It is 11:40 p.m. when the storm takes out the block's power. The same way. Sudden. Complete. No warning. She is on the couch, half reading. She was never fully reading. She was thinking about the proposal response she needs to draft this weekend. And then the lamp goes out, and the television she could faintly hear through the wall from the next apartment goes silent, and the building holds its breath. The dark arrives in her body before her mind processes it. The chest tightening, the hands pressing against the couch cushion, the 1, 2, 3 that she starts and loses at 2. This is her apartment. She knows every distance. She knows the lamp is 2 feet to her left. The hallway is 6 feet ahead. The light switch is around the corner. She knows all of this. It doesn't hold. She is 16. The stairwell. She stops. She picks up her phone. The screen lights up in her hand, real, present, immediate, and before she makes a deliberate decision, her thumb is already on his contact. It rings once. It rings twice. "Hey," Tyler's voice, still awake, which she somehow knew he would be. She says nothing for a moment. She can't quite get there. He doesn't fill the silence. He stays. "The power went out," she says finally. "Where are you?" "Home. Couch. My feet are on the floor." A pause. She hears what he hears in that, and she knows he hears it too. That she used his words. That she was already doing the thing he taught her before she called. How long ago? Maybe a minute. "Are you alone?" "Yes." "Okay." His voice is steady. "Is there anything you need to do right now? Something immediate?" "No. Everything's fine, practically. I just needed to hear a voice." "Yeah." The line stays open. Outside, the storm is finding its rhythm, the kind that settles rather than pounds. Her breathing slows. Her hands are still on her phone, but no longer pressing. "Tell me about your mother," she says. He's quiet for a moment. "Tonight was good. She wanted to cook. I let her, which she appreciated. I pretended the soup didn't need more salt, which she knew. She knew. She always knows. She's sharp about most things. It's just the specifics that slip. A breath. I think the hardest part is that she knows it's happening. She's watching herself from the inside. "Tyler." "Yeah. I'm sorry." A pause. Then, "Me too." The storm moves and the line stays open, and neither of them says anything for a while. This, Cynthia understands, is its own form of fluency. The ability to be present with someone without demanding the silence fill up. She has never been good at this. She is getting better. "The lights'll come back," he says eventually. "Block outage sounds like probably 30 minutes. I know. You're going to be okay." "I know that too." A quiet pause. Cynthia. I'm glad you called." She exhales slowly. Across the room, in the ambient glow from the storm-lit window, she can just make out the faint reflection of her gold watch on the nightstand. "I'm glad I called too," she says. They stay on the line until the lights come back. When they do, she says goodnight, and she means it in more ways than she says aloud. She ends the call, sits in the renewed light for a moment. She already knows what she will decide about Chicago. The question now is whether she'll have the courage to say all of it out loud. She thinks she will. To build, not to survive. She sends the response to Dr. Hale on Monday morning at 9:05, before the first patient appointment. The response is 4 paragraphs. The first thanks him for the opportunity and acknowledges the significance of the offer. The second articulates her understanding of what the director role entails, including the merger process and staffing adjustments she has since researched independently. The third states, precisely and without apology, that she is declining. The fourth paragraph she wrote 7 times. It says that she believes the operational priorities of the Greenvale Clinic during the merger transition will benefit from continuous leadership by someone who understands the team's specific capacity, and that she intends to submit a formal recommendation to the regional board for a restructured transition plan that minimizes staffing loss. It says this is not a refusal of advancement. It says it is a choice about what she wants to advance toward. She sends it and closes the laptop and sits with the fact of it. Then she opens the laptop again and starts the restructuring recommendation. She works for 2 hours. Priya arrives, puts her head in the doorway, reads the room. "You look like you slept." "I did." "And your laptop's open before 9, so something either happened or a decision was made." "Both." Cynthia looks up. "I'm staying." Priya takes this in without celebrating, without overreacting. She holds it for a moment with the quiet respect it deserves. Then, "The team? I'm working on it. The merger is still happening. But there's a restructuring model that preserves more positions. I'm building the case now. Can I help?" "Yes." Cynthia tilts the laptop screen toward her. "Sit down." They work through the morning. By noon, the framework is solid. By 2 p.m., Dr. Hale has responded with a single line. "I'm disappointed, but I respect the decision. Let's speak Thursday." She reads it, notes that he said disappointed and not wrong, and files it accordingly. Tyler texts at 3 p.m., back in Greenvale. "Train was late. How's the week?" She reads it twice. Then, "I declined Chicago. Come by the clinic if you're near 4. 3 minutes pass. Then, "I'll be there by 4:30. She is in the break room at 4:31 when he comes through the door. Still in his travel jacket, bag over his shoulder, the flashlight on his belt as always. He looks at her for a moment. "How do you feel?" he asks. "Steady." She considers. A little terrified. That's probably right. She has the coffee already made. Not great coffee, but deliberately made. She hands him a cup. He takes it, and they sit at the break room table, and it is different from every other time they've sat here. Not because the room has changed, but because both of them are fully present in it now. Not managing the room, not managing each other. "The restructuring proposal," she says. "I'm submitting it to the board." "What's it going to take?" "An argument I believe in and the willingness to have it with people who have more institutional power than I do." He looks at her. "You know you're going to win." "I don't know that." "You believe it." "I'm working up to it." He wraps both hands around his cup. "My mother asked me to send photos of where I live. She wanted to see it. So I took a few of the street, the building." He pauses. She said, "It looks like a place where someone stays." Cynthia hears the weight in that sentence. "That's what I want," he says. "A place where someone stays." She looks at him. He looks at her. The break room hums. Late afternoon light comes through the window at the angle it always does at 4:30 in November, and her gold watch catches it the way it always does. Warm and steady, the way her mother's voice was. The way she is learning to let herself be. She says, "So stay." It's not a grand declaration. It doesn't need to be. He nods once, the same nod he used that first night when he said good after she told him her feet were on the floor. And she knows, in the clean and unhurried way she's been learning from him, that the sentence landed exactly where it needed to. Outside, the sky is holding the last of the daylight. No storm tonight. Just the ordinary evening of a city large enough for ambition and small enough for people to recognize each other in the hallways. She finishes her coffee. He finishes his. Neither of them leaves first. Closing the restructuring proposal takes 6 weeks to get through the board. It is not easy. There are 2 meetings where people speak over her with institutional authority, and she lets them finish before laying out the data they hadn't reviewed closely enough. There is one meeting where Dr. Hale is in the room and she watches him recalibrate in real time. Not a villain, just a man confronting the gap between the system he operates and the people living inside it. He doesn't apologize for anything. He does eventually back the proposal. She accepts the backing without forgiving the original omission. Both of these things are true at once, and she lets them be. In the end, the Greenvale Clinic absorbs the merger consolidation and retains 72% of the combined staff, 12 points above what the regional model projected. It isn't a perfect outcome. 3 positions are restructured, which means 3 people have difficult conversations that Cynthia conducts herself, one-on-one, without delegating the discomfort to anyone else. She stays late on each of those days. She checks in with all 3 afterward, not to manage the outcome, but because they're people, and she's there. Priya updates her mug to something unprintably smug about being right. Tyler visits his mother once a month through December and January. He sends Cynthia a photograph sometimes. A street, a kitchen table, his mother's handwriting on a grocery list, with no caption. She keeps them in a folder she hasn't labeled yet. She's in no hurry to. In February, on a Tuesday evening that runs long, she is walking out of the building when she finds him on the front steps, waiting with the particular patience of someone who had nothing pressing and chose to have nothing pressing here specifically. "How was the board follow-up?" he asks. "Productive, uncomfortable." "Right." They walk to the corner, where the streetlight makes the block look briefly like every city at once, and she tells him about the meeting with the specific detail she reserves for things that actually matter. He listens. He asks one question. She answers it. When they reach the intersection, she stops. She takes off the gold watch, right there in the February air, and looks at it for a moment. "My mother bought this with her first paycheck," she says. "She gave it to me when she got sick. Told me it was for the days I felt like I was losing ground." He looks at the watch in her hand. He says nothing. "I've worn it every day for 8 years. She turns it over once, the way she has 10,000 times without ever knowing she was doing it. It's been armor as much as it's been love. I needed to know the difference. Can it be both?" She looks at him. "Yeah." She slides it back onto her wrist. "But I needed to choose to wear it. Not just find it already there." He holds out his hand. Not to take anything, not to perform a moment. Just a hand, open, in the February air. She takes it. The street is quiet. The building behind them exhales its ordinary hum. There is no blackout, no emergency, no count of seconds until the light comes back. She doesn't need the countdown. The ground is under her feet. The light is sufficient. Beside her is someone who already knows the difference between surviving a dark hallway and choosing to stay after the lights come on, and who, for reasons she has stopped trying to calculate, chose to stay. This is not a story about being saved. It is about learning, slowly, at real cost, with no shortcuts, that building a life requires actually living in it. That the survival instinct, which served her when she was 16 and alone and counting to 3 in the dark, was never meant to be a permanent address. That receiving care is not surrender. That staying when things are difficult is its own form of courage. She spent 22 years mastering the space between darkness and light. She is done enduring it alone.